Western edition, the nation's capital this weekend is a center of protest and of somber remembrance. The protest was by tens of thousands of Hispanic Americans, the remembrance for hundreds of thousands who have died from AIDS. We begin with Cheryl Atkinson and the anguish of the AIDS quilt.
This may be the last time the quilt is displayed in its entirety. A mile long and the size of 24 football fields, it is just getting too big. And like AIDS, it is growing fast.
This is like walking through a graveyard.
James Papa came to find the panels of 38 friends, including his best friend.
I've lost everybody. And there's not that many friends left. I mean, I can't find anybody to go to movies with on Saturday night. They're all dead.
George Martin, Roger Wall.
There are 70,000 names sewn into the fabric of the quilt. Volunteers are reading each and every one.
Christopher John Reed.
The enormity of the quilt and the disease is not lost on the young.
Once you see that there are people just like you kind of realize that there's nothing stopping it from being you.
Cleve Jones founded the Quilt Project in San Francisco after his best friend died of AIDS in 1985.
I think we're going to beat this disease. We want the president and the Congress to step up to bat now.
Part of his mission was accomplished when President Clinton became the first president to personally view the quilt. Today, demonstrators joined hands around the Capitol to demand a larger commitment from Congress to fight AIDS. While inside, members of Congress listened to AIDS activists, including actress Elizabeth Taylor.
And I love you, and God bless you.
As the day drew to a close, marchers carried candles down to the Lincoln Memorial to show support for those living with AIDS and to show that those who have died have not been forgotten.
A huge, steady stream of marchers has been pouring into the area around the reflecting pool in front of the Lincoln Memorial for more than 45 minutes and is still coming strong. Organizers hope to have 100,000 people here. As large as the quilt is, it represents only a fraction, about 11% of the total number of U.S. AIDS deaths, more than 343,000. Worldwide, the toll is estimated at 5.8 million. Anthony?
Paul Castor was fortunate to have VA benefits, but even with good medical coverage, the Castor family's financial system eroded even faster than Paul's immune system.
He's family. He's my son. He's my baby. No way in the hell I'm going to take and turn against him like I know a lot of other people have turned against these poor kids, and I think it's a damn shame.
Even being at home, it's too much. It's too much on them. They're not well themselves.
What's the hardest part?
Facing reality. Am I right, Paul?
Yeah.
That there's been a controlled study from the laboratory to the clinic. The drug does something.
But getting the drug is something else. Until federal approval, strict guidelines have been set that determine who will and who won't get the drug. And even when approval comes, supplies will be limited.
Yes, I want and need AZT. Because I know that it can prolong my life.
The mother of this 3-year-old AIDS patient asks anonymously.
When we're talking about a disease like AIDS that's deadly and you have nothing to lose, why hold, why keep it from them?
I may very well get it, but I don't have it yet. I think it should be more I think it should be as widely distributed as is necessary, since it is the only thing that we have so far.
Under the stringent guidelines now in effect, he didn't qualify for AZT.
I would like to take it, yes, of course. If I don't get it, well...
One week after we did this interview, he was dead.
Times when I just couldn't take it. I would say, God, please take me, get it over with. You know, I don't want to live anymore. But then my girlfriend said to me one day, listen, I'm getting real tired of this. If you don't get up off your butt and help yourself, God and nobody else is going to help you. So, from that day on, it woke me up when she said that to me. From that day on, I just got the will to live, and that's the main thing, the will to live.
St. Vincent's. Call him Tony. Doctors think he got AIDS from shooting drugs. He's determined to beat it.
I prayed, and I just willed myself to get better. I said to myself, well, I got all these people out there that are sticking by me. If I'm not going to do it for myself, let me at least do it for them.
So far, nearly 15,000 Americans have died of AIDS, all hoping, at first, to tough it out.
Our next story is about hope and hopelessness. AIDS has almost become a synonym for death. The disease has no cure and few treatments. Some blame the federal government for not responding to the epidemic fast enough. Others point to standard medical practice, which so far has little to offer. The stage is set. People are frightened, and every quack out there knows it. As the AIDS epidemic grows, so does the network of AIDS fraud. Charlatans who advertise mostly by word of mouth, although some are bolder than that. They feed on despair, and it's so very simple. When you've been given a death sentence, you'll try anything, from the unproven to the unbelievable.
An AIDS patient came in just recently. He was practically dying. And in less than 15 minutes, he opened his eyes and was feeling so good. He said, I like looking at pretty girls. I said, you're crazy. You just came in here half dead. What you talking about looking at pretty girls? That's how quick he responded, because the body accepting electrically. Life is electrical.
And death from AIDS avoidable, Dr. Sebi claims.
The mucus is clogged in the nasal passage.
Dr. Sebi isn't a doctor. He's an herbalist, a man from Honduras who brought his bag of miracles to Brooklyn. His cure for AIDS starts at $500. It's the same regimen of diet and herbs he prescribes for everything, including this woman's sinus problem.
Your heart beats fast once in a while. It picks up a beat or two. Now, how do I know all of that? Because everybody had the same disease. I am asked, how am I curing this disease? Some people call me scientist, some call me voodoo man, some call me a whole bunch of stuff.
I would call him part of a growth industry that we will see related to the exploitation of the AIDS virus. People out there who are prepared to market hope and sell it at premium prices. Virginia Apuzzo is New York's Deputy Commissioner of Consumer Protection. She learned of Sebi'S cure the same way his AIDS patients did. She read his ad in the newspaper. When you advertise that you can do something that you can't do, and then you charge $1,300 for it, you know, we call that consumer fraud. Sebi says he's cured 7 people with AIDS. When asked for proof, he offers up the case of a Boston man.
Frank left Boston and took a cross-country trip, happy as a lark, because the doctor told him he's free of AIDS. He came back to Boston with a slight fever that they could not understand. The infection had gone too far. I was there too late. Frank died. But the doctors in Boston told me, you know, he didn't die with AIDS. I'm happy to tell you, Dr. Sebi, that you cured him of AIDS. I said, thank you very much.
But Frank Knight's doctors and his death certificate say something very different. Both confirm Frank Knight died with AIDS. People fall for this stuff. How come? The question becomes, how much are you willing to pay for hope? And in a desperate situation, in a situation in which you feel there is no hope, the answer is probably anything you have and then some. As for Dr. Sebi, he was scheduled to appear in a New York court this morning, charged with the unauthorized practice of medicine and false advertising. Dr. Hitt is currently under investigation by the Texas Attorney General's office, but that hasn't stopped his patients.
Ironically, it's the victims themselves who are most reluctant to recognize the fraud. Hope, it seems, is hard to let go of, even when it may be false hope.
They believe. They think this will help. And you just stand there and tell them this is lead and it'll poison you, and there are certain numbers who believe it will help. It's desperation.
I understood that the state were unprepared to defend itself. Mm-hmm. They were unprepared because in the past there was 2,781 cases that came before the Supreme Court and lost. Yeah. I won. Yeah. Not only did I prove scientifically, but I had the diagnostic sheets, and I do have them today. And those diagnostic sheets didn't come from me. They came from their school, their American medical accredited school.
Did I read it correctly where there was some requirement for you to actually bring patients, a patient into court from each of those maladies, and that you brought multiple patients in court who, one, testified themselves, and that you had medical records, one showing that they were victims of the disease, and then showing that it had been cured by one doctor, and then a second doctor verifying what the first doctor had said?
Yes. We have to remember this, that whenever you make a statement that goes against the grain, you better be prepared. Mm-hmm. You better be prepared. The judge said that I had to bring one of every patient that I had cured, and there was one that said others. The other was a man that came from Italy. He was paralyzed. But I was supposed to take 9. I took 77.
You took 77 patients in court with you?
That's correct.
But what's clear at session after scientific session is that making a difference is a painfully slow process. There are still only 3 drugs that attack the virus, and doctors still are not sure how to use them, when to start, how much to give, in what combinations, and to whom.
You're literally making it up as you're going along.
San Francisco Dr. Marcus Conant has treated some 5,000 AIDS patients since the epidemic began.
The trouble is that we can't wait until we know all about the drug before we can use it. We have a group of desperately ill patients. The moment that a drug shows benefit, we're compelled to use it.
For patients, that means treatment is often a crapshoot.
I feel like a guinea pig and a pioneer, but I'm just happy that they've made as much progress as they have.
There you go. Good.
But the painful progress of AIDS research also means trying drug after drug that just doesn't work. There were several examples of that here today.
We find out that we've reached a dead end, then I think it's good, because hopefully then we can move on.
Researchers here say they're not worried yet about published reports of a possible new and unidentified strain of the AIDS virus in the U.S. They say the incidence is too small and requires further study. Experts are intrigued by 2 promising drugs being discussed this week called TAT and protease. They seem to offer another way to attack the virus in the body before it spreads. Maybe they'll work and can be added to the mix. And then again, maybe they won't. Edie Magnus, CBS News, Amsterdam.
In the war against AIDS, the drug AZT was a breakthrough that made headlines and gave hope. AZT is the only drug known to buy precious time for AIDS victims. But as consumer correspondent Erin Moriarty tells us, that time costs money, a great deal of money.
Kenny Taub has had AIDS for more than 2 years, but he's well enough to volunteer at a New York AIDS shelter. The reason? The life-sustaining drug AZT, marketed under the brand name Retrovir. Not a cure, but time in a bottle, adding months, perhaps years, to the life of an AIDS victim.
If it was not in front of me and I was not able to take it, I don't know what I would do.
But some AIDS victims may do without, because time in a bottle doesn't come cheap.
Some of them are paying $700 and change a month. Some of them are paying $800 and change a month. Some of them are paying $900. Some are being asked to pay $1,100. This is for 1 month.
What you pay for AZT depends where you buy it. As with any other drug, pharmacists are free to add dispensing fees. A recent survey in New York, the state with the highest number of AIDS cases, found the price of a month's supply of AZT ranged from $700 to $1,300.
Some of the fellows that ran out of money were cutting the dose down from 2 every 4 hours to 1 every 4 hours. Some of them were skipping days.
Consumer groups call it price gouging, but they don't just blame the pharmacists. The buck may stop here, but the high price starts elsewhere. AZT is produced by Burroughs Wellcome, a subsidiary of a British company. Its wholesale price of almost $700 for 1 month's supply makes it one of the most expensive drugs on the market. How much it actually costs to produce the drug, Burroughs won't reveal. But one estimate is that less than 1/3 of the price reflects actual cost of production. The rest goes to cost of development, research on new drugs, and profit.
It might look somewhat immoral or amoral for a company to be admitting that clearly and that publicly, that it makes money out of saving lives.
But drug companies do make money, lots of it. In fact, while profits of most businesses average a little under 4 cents for every dollar sold, the pharmaceutical industry averages profits of 14.5 cents for every dollar sold. And while prices for most consumer goods have risen less than 3% in the past 2 years, prescription prices have increased 4 times that, more than 12%.
One has to remember that drug companies aren't philanthropic institutions. They are in business to remain in business.
When they decide to price their drug beyond the reach of people who need it, then it seems to me that society's got to raise a great deal of concern and figure out some way to get around this.
But what, if anything, Congress can do about the high price of life-saving drugs is a big question. It's up against a strong drug lobby, a lobby that's well-financed, again, by drug sales profits, and a lobby that argues that if you take away those profits, you also take away precious dollars for research to develop new medicines like AZT. Those are medications that save lives. It's a dilemma.
It is a dilemma. Granted, the drug is expensive, but aren't insurance companies picking part or all of the tab?
Yes, but the problem is, like the blues require you to come up with the money first, and then they pay you back, and that can take months, and people don't have that kind of money. Other insurance companies make you take a form and have it signed by your employer. So how long are you going to be working when they see you're getting AZT?
That's true. All right. Okay, thank you, Erin Moriarty. CBS Morning.
This year's conference closes. Most are frustrated by the fact that we've learned more about what we don't know than what we do. Vaccine and drug research, while offering glimmers of hope, fell short of saving lives. A detailed report by the Treatment Action Group, or TAG, blames government and the National Institutes of Health for poorly coordinated research efforts and wasted funds.
One space shuttle mission, of course, cost more than the AIDS budget for the entire year.
I want you to remember the names of those that you've lost.
The conference did succeed in drawing together people of vastly disparate cultures, making clear that while we share the burden of the disease, we must also share the fight for answers. Dr. Bob Arnott, CBS News, Amsterdam.
Become as much a political issue as it is a medical issue will be clear both inside and outside this week's conference. John Blackstone, CBS News.
The science panel said today that there is new hope for developing an AIDS vaccine, but that it will take a lot more research and money. AIDS already touches many lives. Bob Fall looks tonight at some of the youngest.
You're a good girl. You're a good girl. Hold there, that fuzzy bear. Hold fuzzy bear tight.
At a big city hospital, a nurse tries to comfort a terrified child.
You can give him this needle?
Letting her give a needle to her friend, Fozzie Bear.
Use your medicine to stay well, because we love you. Okay, you lay down. Okay.
This 2.5-year-old is one of 3,000 children in the U.S. who have tested positive for AIDS. Today, they can live longer and better lives than only a few years ago, but there is a price, both for the children and their families. Many must endure painful treatments, including this grueling 2-hour infusion of medicine every month.
Are we worried about what's going to happen when the population totally overwhelms the system? Yes.
And parents or foster parents who live with the fear of death also fear discovery. The stigma of AIDS is still so great, mothers here would not let us photograph the faces of their children or their own.
My daughter said, Mommy, if people find out, I won't have any friends.
The ordeal seems hardest on an AIDS baby struggling to live. It is almost as hard on a mother who fears she may have infected and may still be a danger to her child.
I worry every day. I mean, it's, you know, every morning, every night.
It's too early to know whether this 9-month-old has AIDS, but her mother, who is carrying the virus, can't take any chances.
CBS News medical correspondent Susan Spencer reports on what one scientist calls the most significant advance in the vaccine field since we started the AIDS vaccine program. Susan Spencer reports.
In a development that dramatically boosts the possibilities for a human AIDS vaccine, researchers today announced that they have successfully inoculated monkeys against a type of AIDS.
We've answered the question, can you immunize against AIDS? And it appears that the answer is yes.
Now we have the foundation upon which to build a vaccine safe enough for humans.
The model vaccine, made by injecting inactive virus, protected the monkeys from simian AIDS, a close relative of the disease that affects people. 9 monkeys were vaccinated, then exposed to AIDS. Months later, 8 still are not infected. The other shows signs of infection, but is not sick.
As a matter of fact, I'm seeing extremely healthy-looking animals. This gives us something to compare to.
By contrast, the monkeys who were exposed to AIDS but not vaccinated all got sick or died.
It's established the fact that you can protect someone, be it an animal, hopefully a man, from infection by immunizing them.
But going from monkey to man is a big leap. Unlike the monkeys, people can't be exposed to AIDS just to test a vaccine. Researchers would have to vaccinate large numbers and then wait years to see if anyone came down with AIDS.
If we're lucky and we do develop the vaccine, it'll be well into the mid-90s that we have one available.
Given the difficulties, an AIDS vaccine might first be used as a treatment to protect people who are already infected from becoming sick. Today's results are the strongest indication so far that even that is possible. Susan Spencer, CBS
Well,
News,
Drew Barrymore, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ryan, it's great to see you. I hear that you are working at a skateboard shop this summer in Indianapolis. Yeah. Well, that's
terrific. Maui Surfing Sport.
That's great. Thanks, Ryan. Drew, thank you. 5 before the hour. CBS This Morning continues in a moment.
Connie Chung. Good evening. Ryan White, the boy whose long fight against AIDS inspired the whole country, finally died of an AIDS-related illness early today at Riley Hospital for Children in Indianapolis. The doctors said it was painless.
He never regained consciousness, and I am confident that he suffered no pain at the end.
This is the picture of Ryan White that's become so familiar to us the past few years. He could have been anybody's kid, mine or yours.
He was the boy next door who first showed to a stunned nation that no one is safe from the risk of AIDS.
Ryan, a hemophiliac, got AIDS from a transfusion when he was in 7th grade. It was 1984 and nobody knew much about AIDS then. The local school expelled him for fear he'd give it to his schoolmates. He had to sue in court to get back in. Ryan White never gave AIDS to anybody, but he was a carrier of hope and of courage, and he infected the whole country with a new understanding of this terrible disease and compassion for those who suffer from it. It became his life's work.
A lot more people are not afraid of AIDS now, and they're not afraid of someone who has it, and I think they're more willing to accept people who have AIDS.
Last week, as he lay dying, the hospital was flooded with get well messages, though everybody knew Ryan probably wasn't going to get well. But he'd lived long enough to know he'd accomplished what he set out to do.
Ryan has helped us understand the truth about AIDS, and he's shown all of us the strength, the bravery, of the human heart.
This one's for Ryan.
Last night at the Farm Aid concert in Indianapolis, Elton John sang a song for him, Candle in the Wind.
It seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind.
Ryan White was 18 years old when he died. He just reached manhood. Thanks to him, on the subject of AIDS, all of us are now a lot more grown up.